Hi and welcome everyone. Lisa here for Whimsy Stamps. Thanks for taking the time to join me. Today I am sharing some quick and simple one-layer cards. These are one-layer cards in the truest form. So to get started, we need a stamp positioning tool. Any stamp positioning tool you own will work for this. We're going to place our cross-stitched hearts background red rubber stamp on the lid, and we're going to take a card base, lay it down on our stamp. Now I have some repositionable tape on the back of my card base. I flip my MISTI closed upside down, and then I'm going to flip it back right side up and give it a good press down, and then make sure the stamp has clung to the lid. And then once we open it, our cardstock should be in place and our stamp should be on the lid, and we should be good to go. Now you can use your little corner magnets that you can get for the MISTI. I'm just going to lay some purple tape down to mark where my card base goes. That way I can just pull this card base out and come right behind it with a clean card base to stamp again. So this is great for mass producing cards, and it's easy because you can mass produce, but they can all be different. You can just change the colors of your ink, and you're going to see me doing that during the video. So I will be using the new Kiss Off stamp set. I seem to be very fond of those snarky sentiments, and I'm using Post-it tape. So I just decided where I wanted to lay that sentiment down, at where I was going to stamp it, and then I went ahead and laid a piece of Post-it tape over that whole part of the card so that I can mask it off. Now you can use any low-tack tape that you have to mask off the area where you want to place your sentiment. I'm using some pigment inks to stamp, and again, you can use any ink you want. Dye ink, distress oxides, it's completely up to you. Use what you have available. And I started with a red on the bottom and then a pink on the top. And here's our first card base done. Now you probably will want to stamp this a couple of times just to make sure you're getting that beautiful full coverage with your images. So here you can see how quick I can go right back in. I just folded that Post-it tape back far enough for me to remove the first card base and place the second card base in. This time we're going to switch it up. We're going to do red on the bottom, and I'm going to do gray flannel on the top. So this is Memento Luxe pigment ink. It's actually more along the lines they say for mixed media, but it's perfect for card making as well. So let's go ahead and stamp our second card base up, and then we'll go ahead and move into the third one. Now for the third one, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're actually going to remove the Post-it tape. You don't want to stamp too many times over any masking paper, because what happens is the ink is going to eventually saturate your masking paper. Now with pigment ink, it's not going to saturate nearly as quick as dye ink would, because as we know, dye inks soak into the cardstock and pigment inks actually sit on top of the paper. That's something to think about when you're doing this technique. If you don't want to switch out your masking paper a lot, maybe try pigment ink over dye ink in a situation like this. So here I went ahead and I cut me 2 pieces of Post-it tape to create a square. And I'm stamping this with the Tuxedo Black pigment ink. And I stamped it several times just to make sure that I was getting that nice coverage that I like. And then one thing about pigment ink you always want to keep in mind is it takes a lot longer to dry than dye ink does. So once you stamp with dye ink, most of the time it's like you can touch it, no problems. But with pigment ink, if you're not careful and you touch it too soon, it will smear. And I actually did smear one of these. For the sentiment, because it's a big, bold sentiment and I want really good coverage when I stamp this, I'm going to use my VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. I'm stamping the sentiment on these two, the same exact spot. On the third card, I'm going to come in and I'm going to place the little Kiss Off stamp set, or stamp sentiment, sorry about that, up in that square along with 3 of the tiny little lips. And I'm going to be using the same red ink that I stamped the first 2 panels with. It's called Love Letter, and it's from that same Memento Luxe line. And I'm going to stamp this several times, again, just making sure we're getting that nice solid coverage. Now, once we have all of the stamping done, we'll go ahead and move all of this stuff out of the way, a quick cleanup. And then we're going to come in and finish off the stamping with some little tiny detail stamps from that Kiss Off stamp set. So I'm going to add hearts on the end of the little swirls that I stamped when I stamped the sentiments. And then I'm also going to come in and add the little arrows to the end of these as well. For the last card that I did with the Kiss Off, I actually am going to come in with the tiniest heart from this stamp set and stamp it around the lips and the sentiment Kiss Off 3 times. Okay, so once we have all the details stamped out, we're going to go ahead and grab a black Fineliner pen and T-ruler, and we're just going to create some lines above and below the sentiment. And then on this one, we're going to do a square on the inside of that stamped area, and it just kind of finishes off. It gives an end to where your stamping is, and it just makes it look more complete. So we'll grab our Jelly Roll pen and add some tiny little gold dots to each of the lips, and then 3 little dots on the hearts to finish this out. So that's going to wrap us up for today. I really appreciate you joining me. Let me know what you think about the 1-layer cards in the comments below. I love hearing from you all. And don't forget to ring that bell and hit that subscribe button for us. And you can share these videos with your crafty friends. As always, until next time, take care.